Can panelists come in? Hello.
So we had a last minute cancellation, but luckily Tazeen said that she is available. So I just got Tazeen on the panel, which is good. The only thing is that I don't see her online, but we know how internet in Burma works. So I suspect that it's going to be on and off.
Hello.
Oh, Tazeen.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, finally.
So we're starting a bit later because there was apparently there was a technical problem and the organizer could not start the meeting before now. But what let's start. Yeah, let's start officially. So welcome whoever is here. This is the panel from a project which is called Labor, which is about labor insecurity in Southeast Asia. And we're trying to work on, we're trying to understand the ways Southeast Asia could be recovering from the pandemic in terms of precarious labor and informal employment. So informal employment was already high before the pandemic, but after the pandemic, it has come into a kind of very, much higher level. So the presenters here are members of the project and also members of organizations working in Southeast Asia and working especially with communities, local communities and kind of rural areas, marginalized communities all over the place. We've been working together for many years, but this is the first large project we have together. And so that's why I'm particularly pleased, because for many years we were like, we should do something big, and finally we're doing something big. The project has been slightly delayed because of COVID, because people cannot move at the moment, so we're starting in January. But because the conference was now, I thought it could be a chance to kind of share our views. So the way the panel is going to work, I'm just going to ask some questions. And then I will just give a round to each of you just to share your experience. So we have around 15 minutes and we might want to have 10 minutes of questions from the audience if there are any. And I started with 4 questions. So I would say that we just have a short, like 2-3 minutes each of you answering those questions, and then we see how it goes. Is that okay? You can, okay. So, my first question would be, what are the biggest mistakes you've seen happening by international donors or international actors when they try to deal with development in your region, in your area? Of course, intentions, we can assume, and we can kind of hope that intentions are always good, but the question is that intentions, they do not always kind of become real actions or concrete actions that bring to some concrete outputs. So what do you think is what are the biggest kind of misleading things that have been done in your respective countries? I see Phuong on my right, so I ask Phuong to start so that I can just keep track of everybody. Is that okay?
Well, thanks a lot, Abel. And I think that there are many actors, many stakeholders in development sectors in Vietnam. I do believe that the intention is always good when donors and actors come and support the development process here. There are good practices as well, but I think there are also like shortcomings in this. I can give one example. This is not really a big mistake, but I think it is a big missing part when some donors, especially big ones, decided to focus on governance issues only. Like before, during the 1990s and early 2000s, a lot of donors were focusing more on infrastructure and general development. But recently, some of them have decided to move to focus only on governance. So they work with the government authorities and try to find a way to change somehow The reason is that they said that when they can change the structure of the government, or when they can change the policies, the change can actually lead to bigger change in the communities. But I think this is a big missing part when they only focus on governance. I think donors should continue to work with civil society organizations and grassroots organizations to really implement development at all levels and engage more and more people and citizens in development sector. So this is one.
Basic, what I understand, what I seem to understand is that they concentrate on what is policies from the top, and they forget the participatory element, which is like, well, governance is a good thing, but it implies the fact that people also from the bottom can endorse, can kind of agree, and then can support those mechanisms instead of just imposing them from the top.
That's right. It has to be bottom up as well.
Thank you, Phuong. I see John as a second. Does any other mind being last?
Yeah. Can you hear me? There
Yeah.
was an audio problem a while ago.
I can hear it.
Yeah.
Now I cannot hear.
Okay, so I understand that the question is about the biggest mistake that we've seen happening in interventions by international donors, right? And what is wrong with the development as conceived by international actors in our view? For me, I think mind setting is very important because sometimes there's a lack of capability and proper motivation, so the projects are not sustainable. So for people, the mindset is just to remain as simple as they can and go on with their lives no matter what the situation is. But when we do our work, we have to change that mindset, and I think that's the key, the laying the foundation so that the beneficiaries can stand alone. So that is like seed that can spread out its roots so that it can make him strong. So training for social preparation is very important, and we also have to equip the community leaders for their livelihood projects. So it reminds me of the saying that to give a man a piece will feed his stomach, but if you teach him how to cut a piece, he can go on with his life and provide food for his family.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Very nice. I will give the word to Tazeen. Tazeen, because you were a new entry to the panel and your biography is not in the book, can you just tell the audience who are not just online, because I mean this is a hybrid conference, so there are people in the room and there are people online. So can you just very shortly say who you are, because you've been replacing somebody who had an emergency, and then just answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Abel. Well, hello everyone. My name is Zeenath, and you can call me Zeen. About my profile, I'm start working in development field, mainly in the NGO sector since 2005. With one tsunami hit near our Delta area, and since then I start working with international NGOs, different international NGOs with different sectors like health sectors and like avian influenza, and then HIV, harm reductions, and youth sector, and then, well, like Phuong mentioned, currently the trending part, the governance sector recently, and it's been about 15 or 16 years. So I also work in the emergency sector, like Nagis, cyclone response, and then Giri cyclone when we hit by the different disasters. So based on my ground experience, I will say I used to work in the field and also work with the different NGOs. So I partly agree with Phuong with when we look at with the sectors, when we sectorize, it's yes, now even in Myanmar also, it's been about 6 years, I would say, when we have a changing government. The donors trend changed to the governance sectors. Before that, 10 years ago, when I start working, no, 15 years ago, when I start working in NGOs, the donors' focus and interest is on the health sector, livelihood sectors, and then the education, of course. But now there's more and more funding opportunities on the governance sector, but not now, of course. Now, when we are enter coup, there is no governance project at all. We cannot do at all. Well, what I see about the biggest mistake for the intervention is more about the lack of collecting, how can I say, the community needs. Well, of course, when we start the project, we should start collecting the information regarding with the project needs. What kind of projects we could do for this area and that. But at last, when there is a research paper, when we found out that is the local needs, but on the other hand, the donors' requirement came out. So it's filter out with the donors' requirement, and then the donors' interest, and then the local needs are not much, and then there is slightly changes on some projects. So some of the projects couldn't succeed much because one is they couldn't take the needs, the real needs of the local community, and then the second is the donor cannot, how can I say, be flexible on the community needs. The donors' interest and the donors' requirements is different things, and then the value is also different with the community. That's what I found out in brief. Well, there might be more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, this leads to the next question, and I want to start now my right to my left. So, Zeenath, you're going to be the first one to answer, which is just coming from the previous one. What is your general perception of international aid, and what do you think could be changed? Because it's nice to say, okay, governance is missing, like Phuong is saying, or kind of there is a mismatch between the donors and the target group. But my question would be to you, as somebody who's been in the field for many years, okay, so what can be done concretely to achieve this? And Zeenath starts.
Okay, thank you, Abel. Well, with my experience, what I see is the community engagement tools that people start using. I mean, it's in Myanmar, it start using, getting how can I say, popular, I would say, yeah, in the NGO field about 10 years ago, but not every NGO could use it because it has some limitation. For example, like funding. Because when we started, there is no funding. When the project started, the donor cannot give money. Of course, they only can give money when the proposal and everything's approved. So for the local NGOs or even international NGOs, some international NGOs, they don't have enough funding to do their own assessment, before the donor approve. So but still that community engagement is very essential and is important to start, to know the real organization, the needs of the communities, and also the donors, how can I say, what the donor can give funding. So it's also important that the how can I say, the developer who develop the projects also better to have a good understanding of how they could link together with the needs of the community and the donors, how can I say, the donors requirement. So if, for example, the community would say, okay, here there is a drought, so we will need the well or the pond for this community, but the donors coming there not to build the ponds because their projects is not the water sanitation project that they can give, but they can give it's about, let's say, the governance, the more money there. So the donor how can I say, the project designer should develop more how to link with those things. This is just in general what I see from different layers of the level. Is it complicated?
I'm thinking, would it make sense to talk of a coaching program through which the donor kind of coaching program through which the donor gets to know the organization. So instead of course, everything is about the grant, but then what happens is that the organization and the donor could interact before, and there would be some seed funding just to support some initiatives and just to get to know each other. So they say, okay, let's organize a visit to the field, which is not committing the donor in any way, but which is at least making the donor closer to the ground. And then if you like what we are doing, then we'd be happy to be supported. And even if you don't, you're gonna help us with advice and kind of creating what I call a kind of rapport between the donor and the various organizations, even if when they are not directly funded.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, the seed fundings or the piloting project that works better.
Okay, I give the word now to John. John, what do you think you can improve in your situation, like the field that you have?
Yes, as I said, sustainability is very important, and because our basic observation is that when the funder or the organizer leaves, the people's organizations or the beneficiaries also become non-functional. So the community organizing work is very important. We have to provide seed capital for feasible projects, especially for people who have the right mindset, who have clear goals, and then the capability building for their technical know-how. If that seed planted by donors or the foreign funders can grow, that will be that will make the difference. So what from the basic feedback that I received, sometimes giving so much money can lead to conflict. So it cannot fully resolve the problem. So there must be social preparation in place.
Okay, thank you. Phuong?
Well, I think donors are important stakeholders and players in development in here. And as I mentioned that, there's a missing in the approach with a bottom-up effort in Vietnam. So for that, one thing that should be changed is that donors should open more opportunities for grassroots organizations to work with them, and at the same time, they can also be the connectors between the grassroots levels, grassroots organizations, and the government structure. Because usually, sometimes grassroots organizations can find it hard to have the opportunities to work with government sector. But if there are donors in place, and they would be able to also bring together both the grassroots organizations and government sectors, it would be a great chance for bigger impact in development. Also, one more change I think donors should be considering is extending their area of interest or topics that they would be willing to support. I know that donors usually have their mandate, their priority in certain area, but sometimes some area can be very difficult to be done, to be implemented in Vietnam by grassroots organizations. So if they are willing to open up a bit more, I think there would be more grassroots organizations to be able to get along with that.
Thank you. And now we start again from Phuong, which is my left. A bit more on the positive note, because we also want to look at things that how they've been working and what has been achieved. So my next question will be, what are the greatest achievements of development work that you witnessed, so that you've seen in the past, say, 10 years? And if you see, I mean, if you can give an example or can refer to something, then the question could also be, can they be upscaled? So can they be applied kind of on a larger scale or on other settings? That would be the question. And I ask Phuong and then Tuan.
Well, there has been a lot of good results in development the last 2-3 decades, and I think the biggest success is economic development. Donors have brought in different models to support the countries. In terms of official development assistance, like big funding, it has created a lot of structure for the country. A lot of investment that comes into infrastructure, in education, in healthcare, and public transportation, and so. And in terms of grassroots development, there has already been a lot of improvement in terms of education. And there's one more thing that I want to mention is the improvement of capacity of local people, like through working with donors and with support. Local people are now getting more and more capable of doing development in the right way and with proper tools and methods and theoretical background. If something could be multiplied, I would see that capacity building would be quite relevant to any sector, because I think that in the end, any development work has to be done by local people. So if capacity building is in place, more and more issues or challenges could be addressed. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, in the case of the Philippines, the problem is not very simple. So to help poor people, for example, requires political will, and sometimes that can happen if we have foreign donors who are supporting the advocacy work, particularly in my case where we help urban poor dwellers who are being evicted by some government agencies. So to help them, we have to influence the public opinion, and then uh, through the help of media, so that our lawmakers can also drop some laws that are pro-poor, and of course the society as a whole should be humane in their towards the poor. So in the case of uh, foreign aid that are coming after the disaster, I think they provide an economic stimulus uh, to the country, because in terms usually after devastating typhoon, the government lacks the resources to help everyone. So basically, the foreign aid is helping to build back better the communities. So this can be further replicated. And then, as I said, theories by INGO may be adopted, but not dictated to the local settings. Like what Phuong said, baseline information is needed to see if it's applicable, particularly in the Filipino culture, which is already influenced by the Western uh, ideas.
Thank you. Kazin?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Uh, well, based on my experience in the biggest achievement project, I have some example of projects which is really nice. The first one is the tea plantation and coffee plantation project. Well, it's also related with the social, like Phuong mentioned, yeah, economic growth, because they started the donors started providing the technology and the infrastructures, and later it's been over 15 years. One of the project it's made by, they make the green tea, and then they even now export to European countries, and same as to the coffee project as well. So later on the farmers, they can also do by themselves. So it's related with the ownership, again what John mentioned about the sustainability. And then well, the only difficulty is the marketing. So they have to find out the international market to sell their product, because their products got how can I say, the FDA and conditions, which is supported by the donors who supported them in the beginning. Then later they grew. So this is what I found out about that. And other farmers also, now without the donor support, they found the benefit, and then from the project, so they do the similar, the project model with their green tea and coffee plantation. That's one project. And another one is the microfinance. Well, in Myanmar, the how can I say, the income generation people make the like traditional loan in the, even in the our traditional market, we would say wet market. In wet market, the sellers, the buyers, they use the traditional loan with their team, with their groups. And then about 20 years ago, it was introduced from UNOX model, Mohammed UNOX model from Bangladesh. And then that organization, maybe some of you might know, because it's also in the other Southeast Asian countries as well. It's PET International. So it was kind of success. And of course, always there's not only, the sugar on the top, there's always challenges as well. But still, they are, how can I say, organization is quite big, and they have many projects. And then the local people, they already have those practices about the taking the loan and then about the interest. Even those who are not educated, I mean, not who didn't even go to school, they know about calculation. I mean, the buyer, the sellers, so they also used to it. So that project is kind of successful if there's a running regulation. Some projects, of course, fail because microfinance is a very big function. It's related with the agriculture loan, it's related with the economic loan. So there are some success in the how can I say, joint projects. So that's second project. The third one is well, for governance, it's hard to say because now we have a big change, and people level up a lot about when in 5 years when we got chance to tell about the human right and the governance and the politics, and then a lot of input. So now it's hard to say, you know. And for the health sector, what I see is HIV/AIDS project is kind of progressing because now there is no obstacles. I mean, in the city, before that, when a girl has a condom, there's a problem. But now people, you know, open up. So it's not just about how can I say, the trend or the social media. It's also about the cultural breakthrough here from that project. Also, well, this is what I see based on my experience and what I see about the Myanmar, how can I say, successful there's many other projects as well, a lot of interventions and a lot of projects. So this is just the things that I found. Thank you.
Thank you, Tazin. So for the last question, we're going to use the reverse order again. So Tazin is going to be the first. And the question is, what could be the future of development work in your area, in your kind of region, and what you would like to see happening? So what are the kind of the wishes, kind of in terms of wishful thinking, but also kind of concrete, what do you think it could happen given the situation you have now? I mean, of course, we can always hope that the world will be much better, but I'm saying, like, concretely, what could be hoped for the next 5-10 years? Does it?
Well, how can I say that the girl from Myanmar for for that questions? Well, of course, the reforming. Well, we still expect that the coup will end soon, and the COVID in the world will end soon for the people in the world. So we all have, you know, everything's collapsed. A few days ago, there was the fires. Maybe some of you might know, burning in one of the township in Chin State. The whole township, over 170 buildings were collapsed. So it's like restructuring, rebuilding, reforming for the development, of course, like infrastructures. So we expect that it's not just for the NGOs, it's also for the economic. A lot of the economic, how can I say, the investment will come, like for reforming, and everybody's already expect that for that issue in Myanmar. I mean, with the Myanmar setting. Well, with the world setting, there is no doubt that the health sector will be the main sector, because everyone knows that our importance after we hit by COVID-19. So yeah, that's what I see, and how we could contribute. Well, as based on my knowledge, that one of my professor from Japan, he said that, well, government in every country, the government try to do their best, of course, for the politically and also for the national development, but still without the CSO part, I mean civil society organization part, it cannot have rapid growth. It's like a sandwich, like the community and then the government in between is the community society organization. If there is only very small part of cheese, it's not tasty. So so this is how it goes. So the role of civil society organization and the role of donors and all the stakeholders is stay important for the nation development and for the world development. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Tasin. John?
Yes, I think the future of development sector right now is evolving. We are trying to learn our lessons not only in the uh, beneficial beneficiary, the country of the beneficiaries, but also through exposure in other places. For example, I've seen the efforts of NPOs in Japan and the government welfare for homeless. So that's admirable and remarkable on their part. And but we have a very big job ahead of us. For example, in the case of the Philippines right now, there's a creeping dictatorship, and basically the CSO communities is doing the job that the government cannot do. So I think the foreign donors should avoid the trickle down effect, so that means we're not spreading our wings to everyone, but we can only provide so much help. But if we can help, for example, one cooperative and they become sustainable, they can help so much more farmers, fishers, and indigenous people. So there should be no disconnect between the theory and practice. So it's not purely academic, but lacks experience. It's not grounded. So the teacher should know the actual situation on the ground. So like what this conference stated, it's a country does without a war that does not necessarily mean a peaceful country. When people are poor, so they don't have a piece of stomach. I heard that from a local farmer leader, and of course they don't have a peace of mind.
Thank you, friend John. John, Phuong?
Well, I think this is kind of like a wish for the change in here. I mean, in the next few years, I would love to see development work to be done by different stakeholders, and especially there's a stronger collaboration between donors, of course, but the government sectors, civil societies, and especially business sector. It is very promising that more and more people from the corporate sectors are interested in development work here, and I think their roles are important in this. So I would see and development donors would be offering more platform for all the stakeholders to be engaged and collaborating with each other.
Thank you, Phuong. And I have really a question from the audience. So the 4 questions are finished, and we finished perfectly on time, as I kind of was hoping for. We have now 10 minutes to discuss what we have done and to answer whatever questions have been kind of rising in the audience. Now we have actually the conference organizer who is asking questions.
Hello everybody. This is Gianluca. I'm the conference organizer and I work for the International Peace and Sustainability Organization. It's been an interesting dialogue. I've heard lots of important keywords coming in, that donors, international NGOs, there must be funds available beforehand, and also that all local development should be driven by local people. I guess we should consider about meeting halfway. Because as you know, the purchasing power parity gap between developing countries and developed countries is getting thinner now. So as if we compare it with the past, even developed countries like Europe, well, countries where we come from, do not have the same capacity as they had before. So in that sense, probably developing countries around the world would not be able to, get water from that well as it did in the past. But what is not changing, and what will never change probably, is the capacity building capacity of developed countries. And what I really encourage you to do when you do project works in your countries, is to connect with the private sector, not necessarily the business sector. Private sector and business sector, they're not synonyms, right? To answer a few well, I don't want to answer, I want to ask a question to make you think about this, the whole debate. Is it possible for you, think of the Philippines now, or Myanmar? You said that you want restructuring, reform, etc. So do you think it's better, or it was better when you had stronger connections with the outside world? Or do you think really things are better now that you have severed connections with the outside world, especially for those two countries, since we have two speakers from these countries? So that should give us food for thought in terms of how we relate to other countries within the global south, so to speak, and within the Western developed world, if we want to use this term, especially for Myanmar. Well, all three of you, so Philippines, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Have you seen a dramatic change in the way you've been able to work before? Vietnam is it's a little bit different, but currently, between what used to be the situation before the political instability that you have now, and after? This is the first question. Any one of you?
Well, I think the issues you raise is more relevant to the Philippines and Myanmar. But for Vietnam, I think I do agree with you that the gap between, the countries are thinner now, and I think for development, it is important in terms of human capacity, and that is one of the things that I mentioned earlier, that it has to be continued to be supported from donors. And for Vietnam, we do see that, sometimes the stability of the political situation is a good base for development to take on. There are, of course, still a lot of limitations. There are still a lot of space for improvement, but I think there's now more and more agreement and understanding between let's say the global North donors and Vietnam. So let's see how our friends in Myanmar and the Philippines say.
Okay, one little disclaimer: this video is being recorded and it will be made public. So if there's anything you don't want to say for personal security reasons, just be at peace with that. Okay, there's absolutely no problem. It was just a question for food for thought. Okay.
Well, fortunately, I'm not in the list yet with our the current government. How can I say warrant list? Because now they have a warrant list, and then if they notice on online, and then they will easily come and catch me. But anyway, I'm not a, how can I say, big girl here. Just doing the thing that I'm happy, and then working in the community. So not the, how can I say, politicians, fortunately. So I hope that it won't affect to me about my talk. But well, anyway, I should not also keep silent, isn't it? It's really related with that, because if you ask about the developed country and how do we engage, is that, like Phuong mentioned, it's really related with political stability and then the government regulation. Well, I myself, I got to know Abel in 2008 when I started going abroad, and I was already 22. I know 21 years old, and that was my first time going abroad and got to know about the world because it's an international exchange, like Europe and Asia and many other things. So that's an eye-opening, and there are many other youth on that period doesn't have that kind of experience. Well, fortunately, I was only one and Myanmar girl on that exchange, and then I got to know that it was too difficult. I heard from Abba, I still remember that it was not that easy to get Myanmar participants for those kind of exchange program. And why? Because it was in under military government back in 2008, and we don't know about those programs or exchange or the opportunity. Only the some layers, very limited layer could know that because of the internet and because of the connection, everything, That time I got to know because my brother was in Chiang Mai, studying in Chiang Mai. He sent me the application. That's why I could know that. He was in abroad. That's why I could know that. So if there is no one in abroad and then no one sent me the application, I won't know and I may not get that opportunity. So that's the same on that period. Then time by time when the government opened up the country in 2000, well, let's say in 2010 there's a big change in, and 2012 they start receiving, welcoming international people, and then the people inside could also work to engage freely with the international, especially either developed or developing country. It doesn't really matter, it's only a matter of how you define them. I will say that. Well, when you talk about developed country or developing country, sometimes it's difficult to measure. For example, to India, there are many people who are the richest in the world, and also many poor people. So it's difficult whether it's developed or developing. Look at the Indonesia as well. The GDP is higher, right? So it's sometimes it's difficult. Well, that is with my knowledge. So the political changes is really important in Myanmar setting. So in 2012, we could do a lot of exchange and then could know about the how can I say, the developed country and the changes and how to narrow down, those the differences. And well, again, now we cannot do any exchange, people to people exchange. But what happened is now the world is changing, and then even now we are not in the same place, we could see each other, right? So and unfortunately in Myanmar we can still access internet in some areas. So the only important thing is that within this 10 years we could do lots of NGO could do the capacity building projects a lot, and also the education project, awareness projects a lot, so that the community has somehow the knowledge about how to communicate, how to use, for example, mobile internet, and how to use computer. So time by time, even though it's a limited situation, but still connected with the world, and still narrow down. Okay, now people talk about the, let's say, iPhone, like the most developed country has the new product. Well, you can still order from here and buy it if you have money. Still in Myanmar, even though the Myanmar is listed in the one of the poorest country, but still they are richest people here as well. So that is how how we can access, and then everyone can access to internet, and those who couldn't even read, still they can access, they can see the pictures, and that's how to narrow down the knowledge. I mean the knowledge. Well, of course, there are other development sectors need to not that organized develop. The internet still limited in some countryside, but at least they try the way out. Like in the previous meeting, I told to Abel that we couldn't have internet for 3 days. The whole country couldn't get internet when the coup started that, and then we find a way out. So this is how Myanmar people do. We always find a way out, and we survive and live it. We live with it, I would say. Yeah. So and connecting with the world. I mean, with the developed country, and to know and to learn from them, and to exchange with them is the same. Yeah. And until now, we couldn't access anything.
To the business world, to the business sector, if you can. Yeah, right. Did we have any thoughts from the Philippines?
Yeah. Yesterday, we organized business enterprise planning for a local cooperative, and they are supported by a local NGO and funded, formerly funded by EU and IFAD. So right now they are already sustainable. They can manage their own businesses, and further expanding with the help of some government agencies, and support still being provided by the organizer. So the capacity building efforts are very important to make them sustainable. Right now, they are not yet 100% sustainable, but with the support and guidance of development workers like us, maybe they can have a brighter future. I am aware that, for example, in France, they provide some kind of subsidy for their farmers, which is not in the case of the Philippines, where basically farmers are motivated or encouraged to follow that green revolution, so that intensified chemical farming. So we are moving away from that mindset or system, because we are promoting organic farming. And again, I think many of the development or foreign donors who provide development projects to the Philippines are coming from Western countries, especially EU. So they really support all the projects that are drafted by local community organizers. But again, we have to be grounded. For example, if you ask an indigenous people what his perception of development is, he might give you a different answer. They just want to live a simple life, protect the trees or the forest around them. It's difficult or different from our point of view, where development for us is being surrounded by buildings and all that structures.
Thank you, John, and thank you everybody for your participation. For the sake of the next panel, I think we have to close now because we need a short break and then to the next section. But I'm very, very happy that I was able to see you, and especially grateful with Tazeen and agreed at the last moment. But it was also nice because you haven't met for a while. And so thank you very much, and I hope we can start our project soon, and we'll be able to work on those and other things for the next years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting as well.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.